Why was the loudspeaker even on? Nobody had heard it in months, maybe years. It was background decoration in that office building, something mounted high above the coffee-stained tiles, forgotten like the flickering exit signs or the vending machine that ate quarters. So when it crackled to life, dusty, urgent, sharp enough to slice through the hum of copy machines, it wasn't supposed to matter. But it did. Captain Serpent, code red, repeat, code red. The words fell into the break room like a stone dropped into still water. Ripples, confusion, laughter, shrugs. One man nearly choked on his soda. "What is this, some kind of prank?" he said, shaking his head with a smirk. Another muttered about maintenance messing with the system again. Nobody cared enough to stand still. Nobody except her. Emily Carter froze mid-motion, coffee steaming in her hand, sugar spoon trembling just above the mug. For a heartbeat, she couldn't breathe. For 2 years, she had convinced herself the world had forgotten, that she had forgotten. But those words, her name, not the one printed on her office badge, but the one etched into classified files sealed with red ink, dragged her backward. Back to deserts where the air cut like broken glass. Back to shadows where silence was deadlier than gunfire. Back to a life she had sworn to bury. Captain Serpent. No one else in the room could have known what that meant. No one saw her knuckles whiten around the porcelain handle or the way her throat tightened, dry as dust. They kept gossiping about weekend plans, parking spaces, football scores. They thought it was noise, but to her, it was a summons. She set the mug down slowly, too carefully, because her hands were shaking. She forced a breath in, out, just like she had been trained years ago. Control the rhythm, slow the heartbeat, don't let them see. But they didn't see. They never did. To them, Emily Carter was cardigan soft and paper stacked. The efficient project coordinator who sent reminders, brought muffins on Fridays, and smiled politely when her boss told the same tired joke for the 5th time. She fit in because she had practiced invisibility, and invisibility had kept her alive once. A coworker nudged her shoulder lightly. "Guess somebody forgot to pay the tech guys. You look like you've seen a ghost." Her lips moved into something like a smile, a mask that cracked at the edges. "Yeah," she said softly, her voice steadier than she felt. "Something like that." Inside, though, her thoughts were sprinting. Why now? Why here? That code name was supposed to be sealed away, burned into silence. If it was being broadcast on a public loudspeaker in an office break room, it meant something had gone wrong, very wrong. She glanced at the clock. The tick of each second seemed louder than the chatter around her. Every movement around her felt distant, blurred. The ordinary world, the fluorescent lights, the hum of printers, the stale smell of burnt coffee, was suddenly fragile like tissue paper stretched too thin. She wasn't in the office anymore. Not really. She was standing at the edge of something she had promised never to cross again. Her jaw tightened. The coffee cup sat abandoned on the counter, steam rising like a ghost. She adjusted her cardigan, squared her shoulders. Without a word, she stepped out of the break room. Her heels clicked down the sterile hallway, echoing louder than usual, though no one looked twice. To her coworkers, she was just another employee going back to her desk, maybe off to make a phone call. But in her chest, the storm was already building. Each step peeled away another layer of her disguise. Each breath reminded her that invisibility was only useful if you weren't being hunted. She pushed through the glass doors into the parking garage. The air hit colder here, harsher. Concrete walls magnified every sound, the drip of water from a leaking pipe, the distant thrum of cars above, the echo of her own footsteps. Shadows stretched long, dark, suspicious. She paused, old habits. Her eyes scanned corners, exits, the roofline. Empty, for now. She reached her silver sedan, keys trembling in her grip. She hesitated before unlocking the trunk. Her reflection stared back at her from the tinted glass, tired, ordinary, cardigan-wrapped. But beneath that, she knew the truth. She always had. She opened the trunk. The lid creaked. Inside, beneath the false lining, lay the case, black, scuffed, silent. For 2 years, she had pretended it wasn't there. For 2 years she had told herself she would never need it, that Emily Carter could live a life without Captain Serpent, but her hands knew what to do before her mind caught up. Fingers traced familiar grooves. She unclasped the latches. The case opened like a wound. Inside, encrypted comms gear, an old headset, tactical gloves, and a patch. Embroidered in faded green, a serpent coiled mid-strike. Her breath caught, her chest tightened. She lifted the patch with trembling fingers. How many nights had she sworn she'd never touch it again? How many promises had she made to herself that this part of her was gone, dead, buried? But promises were fragile things, and the world had just reminded her that some identities don't die. They wait. She slid the headset on. The weight was familiar, heavy. Her fingers moved automatically, cycling through frequencies, muscle memory, static, nothing. Then, Captain Serpent. The voice was rough, gravel dragged across steel. A voice she knew, though she hadn't heard it in years. Her heart clenched. She hesitated. The name felt foreign on her tongue, as if she didn't deserve it anymore. But she forced the words out. "This is Captain Serpent. Go ahead." A pause, heavy, recognition pressed through the silence. Then, "It's been a long time." Her grip tightened on the steering wheel, though the car wasn't moving. "What's the situation?" The reply came sharp, urgent. "Compromise. This signal wasn't supposed to reach you unless we were out of options. We're out of options." Emily closed her eyes. The words settled on her chest like stone. "You told me I was done. You told me I could walk away." "We meant it, but this is bigger than any of us now. They're here, Carter, closer than you think." Her pulse spiked. She scanned the garage again. Every shadow seemed deeper now, every sound sharper. For the first time in years, her instincts screamed that she wasn't alone. "Give me specifics," she whispered, voice low but steady. "Not here, not on open channel. Secure rendezvous in 30. Coordinates sent to your old drive." The line crackled dead. Emily inhaled slowly. She slipped the gloves on, one finger at a time. The fabric gripped tight, pulling her back into a skin she thought she had shed. She looked at the serpent patch one last time, and then she pressed it firmly onto the sleeve of her jacket. Her throat tightened. The weight wasn't cloth, it was memory. Every mission she had survived, every comrade she had lost, every night she had swallowed fear and walked forward anyway. "Captain Serpent reporting," she said quietly into the dead channel. "Where do you need me?" Silence. Then the voice came back, colder this time. "We need you everywhere." She slammed the trunk shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot through the garage. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was watchful. Sliding into the driver's seat, she gripped the wheel, breathing slow, steady. Emily Carter, the project coordinator, had left her coffee behind in the break room, but Captain Serpent was alive again. And whether she was ready or not, the world had just called her name. Why did the streets feel so different tonight? Emily had driven them countless times. Familiar lanes, intersections where she'd waited at red lights, corners where she'd bought late-night takeout after long office shifts. But now, each shadow seemed to stretch too far, each turn sharper than memory allowed. It was the same city, the same asphalt, but her body didn't believe it. Every muscle told her she was crossing into hostile ground. The GPS on her dash pulsed with the coordinates she'd been given. She didn't need them. Her hands remembered before her mind did. The paths, the shortcuts, the routes drilled into her during years of training came alive again, as if they had only been sleeping beneath the surface. 2 years of pretending hadn't erased them. They were written in her like scars. The night pressed against the windshield, heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. She glanced at her reflection in the rearview mirror. A woman stared back, her hair tied in the same practical bun, the faint lines of exhaustion at her eyes, a cardigan wrapped around shoulders too slight for the weight they carried. She didn't look like Captain Serpent. She looked like Emily Carter, the woman who bought muffins for her coworkers, who answered emails at midnight, who laughed when she didn't feel like laughing. But under that skin, under the polite smiles and office banter, the other self was waking. She hated how easily it came back. Her hands gripped the wheel tighter. You told yourself you'd never be this again. You promised. But promises didn't hold when the world whispered her name over a dusty loudspeaker. A red light caught her at an intersection. She tapped her fingers against the wheel, scanning the mirrors. A sedan rolled past on her left. A delivery truck paused on the corner. Two teenagers crossed against the signal, laughing, shoving each other. Ordinary life, but in her chest, unease burned. The voice in her ear replayed, "Closer than you think." Her instincts flickered. She looked again at the truck idling at the curb, harmless, too harmless, no logos, no plates she recognized, curtains drawn across the back windows. She leaned forward slightly, breath caught. For a moment the world sharpened into silence. Then the light turned green. She pressed the gas. The truck stayed behind, still watching. Her stomach tightened. She turned down a side street, headlights cutting across boarded-up storefronts and chain-link fences. In the mirror, the truck followed. Distance kept, steady, deliberate, not careless, not random. Emily exhaled through her nose. Her pulse slowed, controlled. The switch inside her flipped, the one she had smothered for years. Fear dulled into focus. Panic became calculation. Test them. At the next corner, she turned again. Sudden, sharp, faster than a commuter should. The truck followed. Another turn, same result. Not random, she murmured to herself. Not tonight. Her mind raced. She could lose them. She remembered half a dozen ways to vanish into the grid, slip into alleys, outmaneuver with precision. But something inside told her not to, yet. If she was already compromised, she needed to know who had found her. Her hand drifted to the passenger seat where the case lay open, headset wires spilling out like veins. The tactical knife rested against the edge, gleaming faintly in the glow of a street lamp. No firearm. Not tonight. The silence of steel would have to do. She turned again, cutting across a near-empty industrial block. The truck shadowed. A test wasn't enough anymore. She braked hard. Tires squealed against asphalt. The sedan jerked to a stop in the middle of the lane. In the mirror, headlights flared as the truck slowed, pausing half a block behind. The silence between them was louder than any horn. Emily's breath steadied. She unbuckled the seatbelt with a soft click, every movement precise, rehearsed. She opened the door, stepping into the night air. Concrete stretched wide around her. Empty warehouses. Fences topped with razor wire. The truck idled, its engine low, patient. Her hand brushed the serpent patch on her sleeve. Her voice whispered low, almost to herself. "You wanted me. Now here I am." The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, broad shoulders. Civilian clothes, dark jacket, boots heavy on the pavement. He didn't carry himself like a commuter. His stance was wrong, too measured, too controlled. He wasn't alone either. The passenger door opened, another figure slipping out. Both stayed behind the wash of headlights, faces hidden. Emily's grip tightened on the knife at her thigh. "Captain Serpent," the first man called. His voice carried steady. "You've been difficult to find." Her throat tightened. Not Emily Carter, not the office worker. They hadn't followed her car by accident. They knew. "Who are you?" she demanded, voice sharp, even. The man stepped forward into the light. His face was plain, forgettable. That made it worse. Men like that didn't have faces, they had missions. "You already know who we are," he said. "Or at least you know what we need." The second man moved closer, circling slightly. Not rushing, testing, calculated. Emily's heart beat slow, controlled. Her instincts measured distance, timing, exits. Knife ready, every nerve sharpened. But her mind whispered questions she couldn't silence. How did they know her name? Who had breached the codes? And what exactly did they want her to remember? The first man smiled faintly. "You shouldn't have come out of hiding. You could have stayed Emily Carter forever. But you heard the call. You answered. That's what makes you predictable." She swallowed hard, jaw set. "If you think you know me, you're already making a mistake." The man's smile widened. "We'll see." Behind him, the second man raised something small, metallic. Not a gun, a device. It blinked red once, then pulsed. A sharp hiss filled her earpiece. Static, loud, violent. She winced, yanking it free. The comm was dead, flooded, compromised. Whoever they weren't just following. They were inside. Her chest tightened. The first man tilted his head, eyes catching the serpent patch on her sleeve. His voice lowered, almost admiring. "It suits you, even now. The serpent never really sleeps, does it?" Emily exhaled slowly. Control. Calm. But the unease inside her grew roots. This wasn't random surveillance. This wasn't a threat she could calculate in simple terms. This was something deeper, older. Someone had pulled her out of hiding on purpose, and they had known exactly what name to use. Her grip on the knife steadied, her voice low, cutting through the night. "Then tell me, why now?" The man paused. Silence stretched long between them, broken only by the hum of the truck. His answer came soft, almost casual. "Because, Captain, you left something unfinished." The words hit harder than the night air. She felt them like a blow, not to her body but to memory. Unfinished. The word carried weight. Shadows she had buried clawed at the edges of her mind. Faces, places, promises, blood. Her jaw clenched. She wanted to ask, wanted to demand answers. But before she could, the second man raised the device again. The red pulse grew brighter, faster. Then darkness. Her car lights flickered out. Street lamps blinked off. The entire block sank into black silence. Emily's breath caught. The night was no longer holding its breath. It had swallowed everything whole. What happens when the lights go out, and you're the only one who knows why? The block was swallowed in black silence. Street lamps dead. Her sedan powerless. The truck's headlights gone. The city noise that usually bled even into empty streets felt muffled, choked, like the world itself had been muted. Emily stood still, knife gripped tight, pulse steady even as her chest burned with the knowledge that she had just stepped into a trap. Her eyes strained against the dark, shapes shifting in the afterimage of headlights. She listened. The faint scuff of a boot on pavement, the click of metal, small, deliberate, not careless. They wanted her to know they were here. They wanted her to feel surrounded. But fear was a choice. She reminded herself of that. Control the rhythm, count the breaths, own the silence before it owns you. Her training slipped back into place like armor she hadn't worn in years. She crouched low, knife angled tight to her side. The darkness was an advantage if she let it be. "Captain Serpent," the first man's voice floated through the black, calm, casual, as if the blackout were nothing. Still sharp after all these years. She stayed quiet. Silence was its own weapon. A laugh, low and measured. That's the problem with legends. They think being forgotten means being safe. Emily exhaled slowly, shifting her stance against the cool asphalt. The air smelled faintly of ozone, of burning wires. That device hadn't just killed the lights, it had severed power across the block. Controlled, precise, intentional. She tightened her grip. This wasn't random mercenaries. This was infrastructure-level planning, and they were here for her. A whisper in her memory rose unbidden, "Closer than you think." The second man's footsteps scraped against concrete, moving to her left, not rushing, not stumbling, hurting. They were maneuvering her without touching her, which meant they thought they knew where she'd run. She clenched her jaw, then don't run where they expect. She dropped into motion, sudden and fast. Her sneakers slapped against the pavement once, twice, then silence. She pivoted into shadow, pressing against the cold wall of a warehouse. The men turned, their movements slower, less certain without her silhouette in the open. Her breath steadied, her ears strained. Another step closer this time. The scrape of boots dragged just beyond the corner. She moved first, knife flashing low, controlled. A swift strike to disarm, not kill. The blade connected with a clatter, metal on metal, not flesh. Sparks flickered briefly in the dark. The man had raised a baton, not a firearm. He grunted, stepping back. Her pulse spiked. These weren't soldiers, not in the way she knew them. They were tailored for capture, not elimination. And that meant something far worse. They wanted her alive. Predictable, the first man called again, his voice closer now. You can't help yourself. Always moving into the dark, always fighting ghosts. Her jaw clenched. Ghosts. He didn't know how right he was. A sharp crack split the silence, a flare arcing high, igniting into blinding white. The block lit up like daylight, shadows fleeing in every direction. Emily flinched, blinking hard, her cover gone. The two men stood outlined in the glow, weapons low but ready. Behind them, the truck's doors swung open. More figures spilled out, 3, 4, maybe 5. Their shapes precise, movements coordinated. Not thugs, not amateurs. Whoever had sent them had invested heavily. Emily's heart pressed tight in her chest, 5 against 1. She measured distances, exits, angles. Options collapsed quickly. She spoke finally, her voice low, sharp. You're wasting your time. The leader tilted his head, smiling faintly. Not mine, yours. Her grip on the knife didn't waver, but inside a question gnawed. Why her? Why now? And what unfinished past had been waiting in silence all this time? The flare hissed, burning bright. She shifted slowly, not retreating but angling toward the shadows it hadn't chased away. Then another sound, not from the mercenaries, not from the truck. A low hum, distant but rising, air vibrating, a drone. Emily's eyes shot upward. Overhead, beyond the flare's glow, a small craft hovered, its rotors slicing the night. A camera lens glinted red, watching, recording. Her stomach sank. This wasn't just an ambush, it was a broadcast. She spat the words through clenched teeth. Who are you sending this to? The leader's smile widened, visible now under the flare's light. To the ones who never forgot. The drone dipped lower, circling. She felt its lens pin her like prey. For years she had believed her past had been locked away in sealed files. But someone had opened those files, and now they were collecting proof that Captain Serpent still existed. The flare fizzed lower, shadows creeping back. The men stepped closer. The circle tightened. Emily's breath slowed again, her chest heavy. She could fight, maybe even win a round. But they weren't here to fight, they were here to capture. And she couldn't let them succeed. Her mind replayed a lesson from years ago. If they control the environment, change the rules. Her eyes darted to the flare. Sparks danced around its base, burning hot, unstable. A decision burned quick in her chest. She moved. She lunged forward, not at the men but at the flare itself. The sudden choice caught them off guard. She kicked it hard, sparks bursting as the cylinder skittered across pavement, light wobbling, shadows tearing loose again. The circle faltered, confusion broke rhythm. Emily sprinted, knife low, body angled, every muscle burning. She cut across the street, slipping into the narrow alley between warehouses. Darkness swallowed her again, the flare's glow fading behind. Shouts echoed, boots thundered after her. The drone buzzed overhead, red lens swiveling. Her lungs burned, but she didn't slow. Every step carried the rhythm of memory, training halls, desert runs, nights when survival meant silence and speed. She hadn't wanted to be this again, but her body remembered too well. She cut left, vaulting over a chain-link fence, landing hard on cracked concrete. Her breath came ragged, but her movement stayed sharp. Behind her, the mercenaries followed, slower, less precise. They weren't chasing an office worker. They were chasing Captain Serpent. And that gave her one advantage. She already knew how to vanish. She pressed herself against another wall, pulling into shadow. The drone buzzed past overhead, its red light sweeping. She held her breath, knife tucked close. The seconds stretched long, unbearable. Then the drone drifted on, hunting forward. Her chest ached, but she didn't move yet. She waited, counted, listened. The mercenaries' footsteps pounded past the alley mouth, their shouts scattering in different directions. They had lost her trail. For now. Emily closed her eyes briefly, pressing the serpent patch against her sleeve. Her hand shook just once before she forced it still. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't luck. Someone had known how to pull her out of hiding, how to strip away her disguise, how to corner her. Someone had studied her the way she once studied targets, and they knew something she didn't. Her voice whispered into the night, more to herself than to anyone listening. What did I leave unfinished? The question hung heavy, unanswered. A crackle erupted faintly in her earpiece, static again, broken, uneven, then a voice familiar, desperate. Emily, don't trust. The line cut out, silence. Her stomach clenched. She leaned against the wall, breathing shallow, her knife slick in her grip. The voice hadn't been the mercenaries. It had been him, the grizzled tone she remembered, the one who had called her back as Captain Serpent. If he was breaking through interference, it meant one thing. He was still alive, and he was trying to warn her. But warn her about what? Her pulse hammered. The silence pressed heavy again. Somewhere nearby, mercenaries regrouped. Somewhere above, the drone circled back. And somewhere deeper, beyond even this city, was a truth she wasn't ready to face. Something left unfinished. Emily swallowed hard, lifted her knife again, and whispered into the dark. Then I'll find out myself. What if the only safe place left was already compromised? Emily slipped through the city like a shadow, moving fast but never reckless. Every step calculated, every glance deliberate. The blackout had lasted only minutes before emergency grids kicked in, neon signs buzzing faintly to life again, but she stayed in the dark where she could. She had always been better in the places other people avoided, the alleys, the blind corners, the spaces between light. Her chest still ached from the sprint, but her breathing was controlled. The mercenaries' voices had faded, their boots echoing farther behind now. She'd shaken them for the moment, but not for long. Whoever they were, they had numbers, gear, drones, and something far worse, her name. The coordinates from her old drive blinked on her dash before the blackout had killed it. She didn't need them, she remembered. A warehouse on the edge of town, boarded up, abandoned, forgotten by everyone but those who knew better. Her body moved toward it like instinct, but instinct wasn't trust, not tonight. The warning still rang in her ears, static, fractured words from a voice she had once followed without question. Don't trust, then nothing. Her grip tightened around the knife as she pressed against a brick wall, scanning the street ahead. A rusted sign swayed in the night wind. Glass glittered on the pavement, broken bottles or broken windows. She didn't care. Every sound was louder when you knew you were hunted. A part of her, the part that used to thrive on this, almost welcomed the tension. It was a familiar rhythm, an old language she hadn't spoken in years. But beneath that familiarity there was something heavier. Not adrenaline, not fear, guilt. 2 years ago she had walked away. She told herself it was for survival, for freedom, to build something ordinary, to find a self beyond the serpent. She had convinced herself it was enough. But now, as her sneakers whispered against the cracked pavement, another truth gnawed at her. She hadn't left to find herself. She had left because she was afraid of what staying meant. And maybe that unfinished business they spoke of wasn't just about missions. Maybe it was about her. The warehouse loomed ahead, graffiti bleeding across its boarded windows, steel siding corroded with rust. To the untrained eye, it was another corpse of industry. To her, it was a heartbeat, slow, faint, but still alive. She circled once before approaching, low and silent. Through a crack in the boards, she scanned the interior. Empty shadows, no obvious movement, no glint of weapons, but that didn't mean safe. Her earpiece crackled faintly again, static, then nothing. Her jaw clenched. She stepped to the side door, fingers brushing the lock. Still intact, no forced entry. Either no one had made it in yet, or someone had been careful enough to leave no sign. Emily slid the knife back into its sheath and pressed her hand flat against the door. For a moment she closed her eyes. Her breath slowed. If this is a trap, you won't see it until it closes. But standing here is no safer than going in. She pushed. The door groaned open into a yawning silence. Dust hung in the air, stirred by her movement. The smell of old wood and rust coated her throat. Her footsteps echoed soft against the cracked concrete floor. She let the door close behind her. Darkness swallowed her again, broken only by pale streaks of moonlight slipping through gaps in the boards. She listened. Nothing but the hum of silence. Then one sound, faint, metallic, a click. Emily froze, heart thudding. Not a gun, not quite. Her hand moved slowly to her knife again. She crouched low, eyes narrowing against the dark. Her ears tracked the sound. The far corner of the warehouse. Emily. The voice was quiet, ragged, familiar enough to make her chest tighten. She didn't move, didn't speak. I told you not to trust them. Her throat tightened. Slowly she shifted toward the sound, blade steady. A figure emerged from the shadows, older now, beard streaked with gray, shoulders broader once, now slumped with weight she recognized. A man she hadn't seen since the night she walked away, her handler, the one voice that could still cut past her defenses. Ray, her voice was a whisper, fragile, disbelieving. He raised a hand, not in threat but in caution. His other arm was bandaged, blood seeping through. He looked worn, battered, hunted. You shouldn't have answered the call, he said, voice low. They wanted you too. Her knife didn't lower, you sent it. His eyes hardened. No, that wasn't me. That signal, it was theirs. They pulled you out. They needed to make you visible again. Her stomach sank. She forced herself to keep her stance, though the knife trembled faintly in her grip. Then who are they? She demanded. Ray shook his head, pain etched across his face. The ones we never finished. The ones buried too deep to name. You were part of it whether you knew or not, and now they want it back. The word sliced through her chest. Unfinished. Again that word. She swallowed, throat dry. What did I leave behind? Ray's gaze held hers. Not what, who. The silence after was heavier than the darkness around them. Before she could speak, the warehouse shuddered, a thud against the outside wall, then another. Emily's knife rose instantly, Ray's jaw clenched. They followed you. Boots scraped outside. Shadows moved against boarded windows. The faint red hum of a drone's eye glinted through a crack. Emily's breath caught. The net was closing. Ray's voice dropped, urgent, rough. You don't understand, Emily. You walking away didn't end it, it delayed it. They've been waiting for you to resurface, and now you have. Her pulse hammered, but her voice was steady. Then we end it now. Ray's eyes searched hers. There was something else there, guilt, sorrow, secrets he hadn't spoken yet, but he didn't argue. The warehouse door groaned as hands pressed against it, splinters cracked, metal scraped. Emily's grip tightened on the knife, shoulders squared. The serpent patch itched against her sleeve, heavy with memory. For 2 years she had told herself she was done, but the past wasn't finished with her. And now, with the walls trembling around her, she knew whatever waited outside wasn't just after Captain Serpent. It was after Emily Carter, too. She took one steady breath, her voice barely above a whisper. Let them come. The door shuddered again, and the dark closed tighter. What happens when the place you run to is already marked for destruction? The warehouse walls shook again, boards splintering under heavy blows. Dust drifted down in soft clouds, catching faint beams of moonlight. Emily tightened her grip on the knife, every muscle coiled. Ray leaned against a support beam, his bandaged arm pressed close to his chest, his breathing rough but steady. The mercenaries outside weren't rushing. They weren't desperate, they were patient. That was worse. Emily's eyes scanned the room. Old crates stacked in shadows, rusted scaffolding along the walls, a catwalk hanging above. The kind of space that offered both cover and traps depending on who controlled it. She'd been in places like this before. Too many. She exhaled, her breath misting faintly in the cold air. "Why are they here for me?" she asked, voice low, eyes never leaving the door. Ray's jaw tightened. "Because you were the last one to see it." Her chest constricted. "See what?" He didn't answer, not fully, not yet. His silence pressed heavier than the blows outside. The door groaned louder, hinges whining under pressure. Shadows shifted. Emily moved closer, crouched low. "You could have warned me," she said softly, bitterness lacing the words. "I tried," Ray rasped. His eyes met hers, tired, raw. "Static wasn't an accident. They've been cutting me out for weeks. Tonight was the first time I slipped through." A heavy thud shook the door, splinters cracked. Emily's heartbeat slowed instead of quickened. Years of training narrowing her focus, sharpening her senses. Panic wasted time. Fear clouded judgment. Calm was survival. She adjusted her stance, knife angled low, ready. Ray shifted against the beam. "Emily," his voice softened, a crack running through it. "You don't have to do this. You walked away once. You can still run. Let me hold them here." Her throat tightened. The thought pressed sharp into her chest. He meant it. He was ready to be left behind, but she was not anymore. Her voice was steady when she answered. "I didn't come back just to run again." The door exploded inward. Wood shattered. Metal screeched. Figures surged through, flashlights cutting across the dark. Boots thundered on concrete. Emily moved. The first mercenary barely registered her before she was already low, striking sharp across his wrist. His weapon clattered. She shoved him sideways into the second, momentum buying seconds. Shouts echoed, commands sharp, practiced. Ray pulled a rusted pipe from the floor, swinging hard as another figure rushed in. He wasn't fast anymore, but he was brutal. The mercenary stumbled, metal cracking against his helmet. Flashes of light split the dark, muzzle fire, not aimed to kill but to pin. They wanted her alive. That gave her space but not safety. Emily ducked behind a crate, chest heaving. Her knife slick in her hand. Her mind measured distances, 6 inside now, maybe more outside. Drone buzzing faint above, lens sweeping. Every second she stayed, the net grew tighter. Her eyes caught Ray's through the chaos. He was already bleeding worse, his face drawn, pale. But he swung again, teeth bared against pain. "Up," he barked. His eyes flicked to the catwalk above. Emily's pulse spiked. She moved, sprinting low, dodging between stacks of crates as gunfire tracked too slow behind her. She leapt, grabbed a rusted ladder, hauled herself up. Muscles screamed but held. She reached the catwalk, boots thudding against steel grating. From above, the warehouse spread out in chaos. Mercenaries circling, Ray staggering but still fighting, crates scattered in splinters. The serpent patch burned heavy on her sleeve, a reminder that she wasn't just Emily Carter anymore. She crouched low, pressing against the railing. Her breath came fast, shallow. The leader stepped inside finally, calm amidst the noise. The same man from the street. His eyes found her instantly, as if the darkness couldn't hide her at all. His voice cut sharp. "Captain Serpent, you're making this harder than it needs to be." Her jaw clenched. She shouted back, voice steady, "Then tell me what you want." The man smiled faintly, his flashlight beam cutting upward to catch her face. "Closure." Ray snarled from below, "Don't listen, it's bait." But Emily couldn't ignore it. The word pressed into her chest, heavy, closure, unfinished. Every phrase tied to the same shadow she couldn't name. The leader lifted a hand. His mercenaries froze, weapons lowered but ready. His gaze held hers. "You left someone behind," he said, calm, certain, "and they've been waiting for you." Her throat tightened. "That's impossible." Ray's voice roared hoarse from below. "Emily, don't." But she couldn't stop. "Who?" The leader's smile grew. "You already know." Before she could answer, the drone above dipped lower, its lens flashing red twice. A signal. Gunfire erupted, not at her, at Ray. He staggered, the impact tearing through his shoulder, his pipe clattering to the floor. His body hit hard, blood pooling fast. Emily's scream caught in her throat. She moved without thinking, knife raised, launching herself down from the catwalk. She crashed onto one of the mercenaries, knocking him sideways, blade pressed against his throat before he could react. The others surged forward, shouting. The leader raised a hand again, stilled them. Emily pressed the knife harder, voice raw, cracking. "Tell me who." The leader's eyes didn't flinch. His voice was quiet. "Not here, not like this." Ray groaned on the floor, his voice weak but urgent. "Don't trust." The leader tilted his head. "You'll see soon enough if you survive tonight." The drone's red lens flashed again, then cut out. Power surged back suddenly, lights flickering to life overhead, humming loud. The blackout was over. Emily blinked against the sudden glare. In that moment of distraction, the mercenary under her twisted, disarming her, the knife clattering across the floor. She scrambled back, heart hammering, eyes darting between Ray bleeding out and the leader watching her with unnerving calm. "Captain Serpent," he said softly, almost with reverence, "the past isn't chasing you, you're chasing it, and you don't even realize why." The words chilled deeper than the night air. Emily's chest heaved, sweat and dust clinging to her skin. Her world tilted between rage, grief, and something colder, doubt. Because deep down, some part of her feared he was right. How do you decide who to trust when every voice speaks in riddles? The warehouse hummed with harsh fluorescent lights, the sudden brightness exposing every scar of the fight. Splintered crates littered the floor. Dust swirled in the air like smoke. Emily stood frozen, her chest heaving, eyes locked on the mercenary leader who hadn't flinched once through the chaos. His calm was worse than the gunfire. It was confidence, assurance that he already knew how this would end. On the ground, Ray groaned, blood spreading fast across his shirt, pooling dark beneath him. His hand clutched at the wound, shaking. He looked smaller than she remembered, his strength leached out by pain and time. Emily's throat tightened. Every instinct screamed to move toward him, but her body stayed locked, knife gone, the mercenaries still circling. Her hands curled into fists, useless without steel. The leader's gaze never left her. "Every step you take is one closer to the truth," he said softly, "but the truth comes at a price." Her jaw clenched. "And what's the price tonight, him?" She nodded toward Ray. A faint smile. "He's already paid more than you realize." Ray's voice rasped from the floor, weak but filled with desperate urgency. "Don't listen, Emily, they'll twist it, they'll." His words broke in a cough, blood flecking his lips. The mercenaries shifted, uneasy. The leader raised a hand. Stillness returned. Emily swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" The leader tilted his head, studying her like a specimen. "Not want, need, you're the key, the last thread. Without you the story stays buried, and they don't want it buried anymore." Her chest ached. The words pressed too close to what Ray had said. Not what, who. Her voice cracked despite her control. "Who did I leave behind?" The leader's smile deepened, almost pitying. "You really don't know." The silence that followed tore at her more than any answer could. Behind him, one of the mercenaries shifted his weight, impatience leaking through. The leader shot him a look sharp enough to cut steel. Then his gaze returned to Emily. "Tonight isn't about answers, it's about survival. You can bleed here with him." His chin dipped toward Ray, "or you can follow the path meant for you, but you cannot do both." Emily's heart twisted. Her eyes burned as she looked at Ray. He was watching her, teeth gritted against the pain, eyes fierce despite the blood. "Do," he gasped. "Don't let them drag you in, you're not theirs anymore. His breath faltered. "You're more than the serpent." Her chest clenched. The serpent patch on her sleeve felt heavier than ever, like it was burning into her skin. The leader's voice cut across the moment. Calm, inevitable, make your choice. Emily's hands trembled at her sides. Save Ray and risk capture. Leave him and chase the ghost of unfinished business. Neither path felt survivable. Both felt like betrayal. Her mind flashed with images, Ray training her, barking orders that had once kept her alive. Ray telling her she'd earned her freedom the night she walked away. Ray's voice breaking through static tonight, the only one warning her not to trust. Her throat burned. She whispered almost to herself, "There has to be another way." But silence answered. The mercenaries began to close in again, patient steps pressing her inward. Her breath quickened, every calculation narrowed, every option thinned. And then an explosion. Not inside, outside. The ground trembled, dust cascading from the rafters. Shouts erupted from the mercenaries near the door. The leader's calm cracked for the first time, his head snapping toward the sound. Emily didn't waste it. She moved, sprinting toward Ray, sliding hard across the floor to his side. Her hands pressed against his wound, blood hot and slick between her fingers. He groaned, eyes fluttering. "You should." "Don't," she hissed, her voice broke but held. "Don't you dare." The mercenaries shouted, chaos spilling. The leader barked orders, his calm returning like a blade resheathed. Another explosion, closer this time. The warehouse walls rattled. Through the broken boards, headlights flared, vehicles rolling in fast. Not mercenary trucks, different, darker, military grade. Emily's stomach dropped. Reinforcements, but whose? The leader's voice cut through the chaos. "Move her now." Mercenaries surged toward her. Emily rose, knife lost but fury alive, ready to fight barehanded if she had to. But before they reached her, the side wall of the warehouse tore open, metal shrieking. A tactical vehicle rammed through, headlights flooding the floor. Figures spilled out, armed, armored, efficient. Not mercenaries, soldiers. Gunfire erupted, shouts drowned in thunder, the warehouse filled with chaos. Emily dragged Ray behind a stack of crates, shielding him as best she could. Bullets cracked through wood, ricocheting against steel beams. Smoke and dust thickened. Ray's voice rasped in her ear, "Not ours." Her heart hammered. If these weren't mercenaries and they weren't her old unit, then who were they? A third player, another shadow in the dark. The serpent patch burned hotter against her skin. She pressed harder on Ray's wound, whispering sharp through the din, "Stay with me, just stay." He groaned, his eyes glassy, his voice barely audible. "Emily, you can't trust any of them. Not him, not me, not even yourself." Her breath caught. "What are you saying?" His eyes closed briefly, a tear cutting through grime on his face. "You don't remember because you chose not to." The words froze her blood. Before she could speak, the leader's voice rang out again through the chaos. She glimpsed him across the floor, standing tall, calm even as bullets tore through his men. His eyes locked with hers, unblinking. "You'll see soon enough," he shouted. Then a flashbang detonated. Light, sound, the world went white. When her vision cleared, the mercenaries were gone. The soldiers who had stormed in were retreating too, slipping back into their vehicles. The tactical truck reversed through the hole it had made, disappearing into the night as quickly as it had come. Silence fell again. The warehouse was wrecked, smoke hung heavy, crates shattered, metal twisted, only Emily and Ray remained. She pressed her hand harder against his wound, tears stinging her eyes. "Stay with me, please." Ray's lips moved, voice faint, almost gone. "You'll have to face it now. The one you left behind was never me." His chest rose shallowly once, twice, then stilled. Emily froze, the silence louder than the explosions had been. Her hands trembled, her chest broke, but her mind burned with the words he had left her. "Not me." The truth she'd been chasing wasn't just about enemies or missions. It was about someone else, someone she had abandoned, someone waiting in the dark. She clenched her fists, blood smeared across her sleeves, her breath jagged and broken. The serpent patch itched like fire. Her voice cracked the silence, soft, trembling but steady. "Then I'll find them." What do you do with the silence after someone dies for you? The warehouse was still, too still. Smoke lingered like ghosts between broken beams, faint cracks in the walls groaning under the weight of what had just happened. Emily knelt in the wreckage, her hands sticky with Ray's blood, her chest heaving in sharp, ragged bursts. She pressed her forehead against the cold concrete, eyes closed, the serpent patch burning against her sleeve. For 2 years she had buried the soldier inside her. But now the grave was broken open, and all she could feel was the hollow echo of loss. Her jaw tightened. She didn't cry, not fully. Tears stung, clung to her lashes, but never fell. Soldiers learned early that crying didn't stop the bleeding, didn't bring back the fallen. What it did was remind you that you were still human, and Emily wasn't sure if she was any more. Ray's last words gnawed at her, replaying in a loop that scraped raw against her chest. Not me. The one you left behind was never me. She swallowed hard, staring at his still body, the rough fabric of his jacket dark with blood. She remembered him in pieces, shouting over gunfire, slamming a map down on a table, laughing once in a rare moment when the mission hadn't taken everything. She remembered him telling her she'd earned her exit, that she could walk away clean. She believed him, needed to believe him. And now he was gone. Her voice broke the silence, low, trembling. "I didn't leave you, Ray, I didn't." But the words felt empty. He wasn't here to hear them. The creak of metal snapped her back. She rose instantly, knife retrieved, body coiled, but the sound came from above, the catwalk swaying in the draft through the torn wall. Nothing more. The mercenaries were gone. The soldiers who stormed in were gone. For the moment, she was alone. But not safe, never safe. She crouched beside Ray's body one last time, closing his eyes with steady hands. A soft whisper escaped her lips, something she hadn't said in years. "Rest easy, old man." Then she stood, squaring her shoulders. The truth wasn't in this warehouse. It was out there, waiting in shadows, and Ray's death left her no choice. She pulled her headset back into place. Static hissed faintly, but no voices answered. Whoever had sent the false recall signal was still out there, watching, waiting. She had two options: go dark, disappear again, or lean into the storm and force the truth into the open. For years she had chosen silence. Tonight, silence wasn't enough. She left through the hole the tactical truck had made, the night air cold against her sweat-soaked skin. The city stretched quiet, rooftops jagged against a cloudless sky. The streets seemed empty, but she knew better. Eyes followed her somewhere, lenses tracked her, satellites overhead whispered coordinates to men she hadn't met yet. She was a target again. She walked anyway. Every step pulled her deeper into memory. She remembered the mission where the serpent name had been given to her, coiled, patient, striking only when certain. She remembered the faces of those who hadn't come back. She remembered a night in a safe house, whispers of an operation too deep to carry names, too dangerous to even be written down. She had told herself she'd left all of it behind. But now, pieces were surfacing, and one piece mattered more than all the rest. Who did I leave behind? Her chest tightened. Faces flickered in her mind, comrades, informants, allies. Too many gone, too many forgotten. But the way Ray had said it, the weight in his eyes, it hadn't been about a comrade. It had been about something closer, something personal. Her steps slowed as the thought pressed sharper. Someone waiting for me. The wind shifted, she froze. A sound, a faint scuff of gravel, too soft for an accident. Her knife rose. "Easy," a voice called from the shadows. Female, calm but sharp-edged. Emily pivoted toward the sound, blade steady. A figure stepped into the spill of moonlight, slight, hood pulled low, movements precise. Not mercenary, not soldier, something else. The woman lifted her hand slowly. "If I wanted you dead, you'd already be bleeding." Emily's grip tightened. "Then why are you here?" The woman's lips curved faintly, though not in kindness. "Because you're looking for answers, and I'm the only one who still remembers the truth." Emily's chest clenched. "Then tell me." The woman tilted her head. "Not here, too many ears." Her eyes flicked skyward, toward the faint hum of a drone she hadn't even spotted yet. Walk with me, or stay here and let them close in. Emily hesitated. Trust wasn't an option, not anymore, but neither was standing still. She lowered the knife slightly, though her stance stayed taut. Talk as we move. The woman's gaze lingered, then she turned, slipping into the dark street. Emily followed, steps silent, every nerve screaming. For blocks, neither spoke. The city seemed hushed, as if even the neon signs dared not buzz. Emily watched every alley, every rooftop. The woman never faltered, her pace steady, like she had walked this path 100 times. Finally, Emily broke the silence. Who are you? The woman's voice was calm. Someone who watched from the edges, someone who knows what you walked away from. Her throat tightened. Then tell me, who did I leave behind? The woman's step slowed. She glanced back, her hood slipping just enough to catch her eyes in the dim light. Hard eyes, tired eyes. You left behind the one person who couldn't leave. Emily stopped cold. The words sliced deeper than any blade. What does that mean? The woman's gaze held hers. It means your past isn't just about missions. It's about blood. You thought you buried it, but blood doesn't bury easy. It waits. Emily's stomach turned, her chest pounding. Blood, family. The word she hadn't dared to think surfaced sharp. Her voice cracked. You're lying. The woman shook her head, almost pitying. Am I? You already feel it. That's why you came back the moment you heard the call. You knew the truth was waiting. Emily's breath came ragged, her hand trembling around the knife. She wanted to deny it, wanted to shove the thought back where she had buried it, but her body betrayed her. Her pulse knew. Her silence knew. The woman's voice dropped softer. They have them, and they'll use them until you finish what you ran from. Emily's world tilted, air crushed from her lungs. Them, not just someone, more than one. Her voice broke. Who? The woman's lips parted, ready to answer. Then a shot rang out. The sound cracked through the night, sharp, final. The woman's body jerked, blood blooming dark across her chest. She collapsed against the pavement, breath gurgling. Emily spun, knife raised, eyes scanning rooftops. Nothing. No movement, no flash. Whoever had pulled the trigger was gone before the echo died. She dropped to her knees beside the woman, pressing her hands to the wound, blood warm against her skin. Stay with me, stay. The woman's hand shot up, clutching Emily's wrist with surprising strength. Her lips trembled, words spilling faint. Find them. Her grip loosened, her body stilled. Emily knelt in the silence, her hands drenched again in blood that wasn't hers. Her throat burned, her chest a hollow ache. Above, the drone's red eye blinked once, then vanished into the dark. Emily stared after it, jaw tight, tears burning but unfallen. Her voice cracked the silence, soft, raw. Then I'll find them, whoever I left behind, whatever it costs. How much of the past can you carry before it breaks you? Emily walked through the night with blood on her hands, the weight of two bodies pressing against her chest, Ray in the warehouse, the woman on the street. Both silenced before they could give her the answers she needed. Both leaving only fragments, riddles, half-truths. Not me. The one you left behind was never me. You left behind the one who couldn't leave. Find them. The words looped in her head, heavy, jagged. Every step echoed with them. She wanted to scream, to break something, to collapse under the weight. But she didn't. She walked, always walked, because movement meant survival. Her reflection flickered in darkened shop windows as she passed blood-smeared hands, dirt on her face, the serpent patch glowing faint under a street lamp. Not Emily Carter, project coordinator, cardigan soft, muffin bearer. Captain Serpent. A name she had buried but never escaped. A name now tied to ghosts clawing their way back to the surface. She turned into an alley, ducking low. The drone had vanished, but she didn't believe it was gone. Eyes were still on her. The mercenaries had disappeared, the tactical soldiers had retreated, but that only meant the net was closing tighter. Not fast, not loud, patient, waiting. Her pulse steadied despite the ache in her chest. She remembered deserts where the silence was thick with threat, nights when she had survived only by trusting the tension in her gut. Tonight felt the same. She stopped near a rusted fire escape, back pressed against cold brick. For a moment she let herself breathe. Then her hand moved, pulling the serpent patch from her sleeve. She held it in her palm, its threads frayed, its edges rough. She thought of Ray telling her she was more than the serpent. Thought of him dying before he could finish the truth. Thought of the woman whispering about blood, family, someone she had abandoned. Her throat burned. She whispered into the silence, "Who did I leave?" No answer, only the hum of the city. She clenched the patch in her fist. "If no one will tell me, I'll find out myself." Her body moved without conscious thought, muscle memory, guiding her back to places she hadn't allowed herself to walk in years. The path wound toward the outskirts, where the city's glow faded and shadows deepened into silence. She found herself outside another warehouse. Not the rendezvous, not the battlefield. Different, older. The kind of place she remembered being sworn never to approach again. Its walls sagged under decades of neglect, but the faint glow of light spilled from cracks around the door. Emily's chest tightened. She shouldn't know this place. She shouldn't remember. But she did. The way memory sometimes claws through when you try hardest to forget. Her knife was steady in her grip as she approached. The door creaked. The air inside was cold, metallic, thick with the scent of oil and dust. Machines rusted in corners, their purpose long dead, but deeper in voices murmured, low, sharp. She moved silently, pressing against walls, sliding through shadow. She caught sight of them first, two mercenaries, gear crisp, weapons slung low, guarding, not attacking, protecting something. Her stomach sank. She pressed closer, slipping behind a stack of crates. Beyond the guards, another door glowed faint under fluorescent light. A corridor stretched behind it, sterile, unnatural against the decay of the warehouse. This wasn't a ruin, it was a cover, a skin. Her chest tightened as she listened. The mercenaries spoke little, their words clipped. She caught fragments. Transfer in the morning. Package still stable. Orders haven't changed. Package transfer stable. Her blood ran cold. The woman's words replayed in her mind. They have them. Her grip on the knife trembled. This was it. Whoever she had left behind was here. Her body wanted to move, to strike, to tear through the guards and rip open the door. But another part of her, the part that had survived missions others hadn't, forced her still. Not yet. Don't rush. Don't bleed for nothing. She crouched lower, eyes sharp, waiting. Then footsteps, heavier, slower. The leader. The same man who had cornered her on the street, who had stood calm in the warehouse as Ray bled. His silhouette filled the hallway, his voice steady. Everything is ready, she's close now. When she sees, it will break her. Emily's heart hammered. His words weren't for her, they were for someone else. But they cut sharper than any blade. She clenched her teeth. I won't break. She slid back into the shadows, retreating slowly, silently, until the night swallowed her again. She couldn't take them now, not outnumbered, not unarmed. But she had seen enough to know the truth was real. They had someone tied to her, someone she had left behind. She walked for hours, though time felt meaningless. The streets blurred, the city shifting from steel to silence as she crossed into the outskirts. Her body ached, her hands still sticky with blood, but her mind wouldn't stop turning. Faces, voices, memories. Ray's laugh, the woman's dying whisper, the leader's calm smile. And beneath it all, a face she couldn't place, half remembered, half buried. Younger, familiar. A memory she had smothered years ago, so deep she couldn't tell if it had ever been real. Her legs buckled finally near an abandoned train yard. She sank against the cold steel of a freight car, the night pressing heavy above her. For the first time in hours, she let herself close her eyes. Sleep didn't come, only memory. She remembered a safe house, a child's voice, a promise whispered in the dark, I'll come back. Her eyes snapped open, heart slamming against her ribs. She had left someone behind. Not a comrade, not an ally, not even a mission contact. Family. The word tore through her like fire. She pressed a bloodied hand to her mouth, choking on air. Tears burned but refused to fall. Her whole body shook, the serpent patch still clenched in her fist. She whispered raw, broken, "Oh God, what did I do?" The silence didn't answer. Somewhere out there in a hidden corridor beneath a warehouse, someone with her blood was still alive, waiting, used as bait, as leverage. She stood, her body trembling but her voice steady. "They think I'll break, they're wrong." She slipped the serpent patch back onto her sleeve, pressing it firm. Not as disguise, not as burden, as reminder. Captain Serpent was back, not because she wanted to be, not because she chose it, but because there was no other way. Her voice whispered into the night, low, steady, almost like prayer. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And she walked forward into the dark, toward the truth she could no longer deny.